Good afternoon, students. This is Lohit Ram SK, Assistant Professor of Commerce, Srimati Srivaya, Government Faculty College, Pagoda. Dear students, in this session, I'm going to discuss the topic called business cycle, its meaning, as well as the features or characteristics of business cycle, or may can say trade cycle. Let us understand what it means first. The business cycle refers to a predictable long-term pattern of alternative periods of economic growth. So that means it's a predictable. That means we can identify, estimate, and we can come to know with certain predictions. But it's about long-term pattern. It happens in alternative periods of economic growth. So that means a growth makes a recovery. So and decline. So that is recession. So growth and recovery will happens with at the different periods. It is characterized by changing employment, industrial productivity, and interest rates. So these all things may change it at different periods and different time. But all those different periods is called as business cycle period. So within that, the growth is possible, recession is possible. So much more that we are going to add other things in the characteristics, but it start with a growth and end with recession. Again, it may start with prosperity or recovery stage. So all these things happens in business cycle. Business cycle is all about predicting a long-term pattern of alternating periods of economic growth. Let us understand what are the features of here. The first feature of business cycle is the cycle is synchronic. That means there will be a movement of upward and downward. So in the meaning itself, we came to know there is a growth, there is a recession, or we can say there is a boom stage also, or peak stage, a saturation stage, you can see a growing stage or growth stage. All this comes under this business cycle. So there will be a upward and downward movements. So it occurs at all same period in all industries. So there are different kinds of industries which are operating in today's business world. No industry is exceptional to this business cycle. So every industry will face this business cycle. Here, the way of prosperity or depression generates a wave in other industry. So that means if one industry is growing up, prospering up, or it is decreasing its or activities, it will generate some wave. So that means it will affect the other industrial activities also. Suppose if food industry is growing or prospering, the and the other industries which are connected with food may also feel the activities of prospering or developing, because industrial activities are connected with one to one, or they may have a relationship with directly or indirectly. So the wave of this prosperity or depression generates and a wave in other industries also. They may also get affected. When industry picks up to provide more employment, more income, etc. to workers, so automatically it will use a new orders for raw materials. So that means raw materials and capital goods. So whenever there is a up or prosperity or growing activity take place. So there will be a more productional activities. There is a more economic activities or business activities of producing, converting of raw materials into finished goods, packing, storing, selling, advertising, marketing the goods and services. At that time, there will be a greater demand. So the business entities or organizations give orders for raw materials and capital goods. So capital goods are goods which are used for long term or long period. It may be a building or capital investment or a machinery or land. So other such long-term usable goods, they are demanded by the business entities. That's about the first feature of business cycle. Then the second feature of business cycle is a business cycle is a wave-like movement. Means the period of prosperity and depression can be alternately seen in a cycle alternately. So they together they don't happen or incur. So both of them will happen at different times, not at a time or a single time, because every business organization or company may have or may don't have the same kind of resources which are used for the business activities. They will be different from one period to another period. So whenever they have a good resources and they employed them, it may called as prosperity. When they are incurring the losses with lower resources, so they may at that time may called as a depression. So both of them have a different way movement for growing up or declining or depressing. Then the third characteristic of or feature of business cycle is cyclical fluctuations are recurring in nature. So here all the cycling activities of business cycle, a prosperity or a introduction stage or growing stage or boom stage or peak stage, declining stage, saturation stage or depression stage, recession stage. So all these stages are or all these phases are repetitive in nature. So they are followed by depression and depression again, and it is followed by boom also. Boom, it's a stage where the business cycle, sorry, the business entities will enjoy a maximum production of life, more employment opportunities, more standard of living, more income level, contribution to the GDP is high at that time. So everything is on a peak or high stage, but it will not be remain for a long time. So these are fluctuations. So one time it's up, one time it's down, and they are repetitive, recurring again and again. So this cycle always runs with repetitive nature. Then the fourth characteristic of business cycle is they are cumulative and self-reinforcing in nature. So that means each moment feeds on itself. Whatever the moment happens to the business entities, either it's a prosperity stage, boom stage, recession stage, or depression stage, in every moment they may get feeds on itself. If they are in good stage or good movement and they keep the movement in the same direction, so that means once the boom stage starts, it goes on growing, growing, growing. They will get n number of opportunities to grow up. Either it's to expand, divert, extend market share, invest more and more, generate employment opportunities, or to gain profit. They can get lot of opportunities. They once if they come to know that the way they are going is profit earnable, or the moment is going it is profit earnable, they will go in the same direction only. Then till the forces accumulate to reverse the directions. So if all those forces which they are using for the business activities or commercial activities, if they reversed, so that means whatever I said till the time now, all become opposite. They may get lost, they may incur a loss, their productional sources may not work accordingly, or they may not get opportunities, they may lost the opportunities, reduction of employment. All these things happens in a reverse direction. So the business cycle are cumulative and reinforcing. If the moment starts declining, they are unable to come out. It will take time because the fluctuations and variations in inputs and internal environment and external environment of business may take time for becoming an opportunity for the business entities or to become right for the business entities. So they have a cumulative nature, and accumulative means add on, continuing, and reinforcing. So they become correct. Any stage may not be remain same for a long time. So that's about the fourth characteristic of business cycle. Then the fifth characteristic of business cycle is there can be no indefinite depression or eternal boom period. So indefinite means we can't identify or tell the exact time of depression. So up to what number of years or what number of time it will happens, or up to what stage the boom period will remains, or we can say there is no eternal boom. Eternal means a permanent. So no boom stage or moment is not permanent. It will also come to decline. So each phase contains in itself a seed for the phase, other phase. So that means if one stage or one phase starts, it will have a seed for other phase also. So at the end of this phase, the next other phase starts to grow up. For example, when the boom reaches to peak, after reaching that peak phase or stage, slightly it starts to turn into a recession. A recession is all about a slowdown of business activities or economic activities. Later, it causes for meltdown of the economic activities. There is no movement of goods and services, productional activities. Like so, slowly it will turn into a declining stage or saturation stage. So, the business cycle can't be in a same stage. The depression may not be indefinite. The eternal boom may not be remain same. or it may not be eternal for a long period. Then the next characteristic of business cycle are they are pervasive in nature in their effects. The cyclical fluctuations affect each and every part of economy. So depression or prosperity felt in one part of the economy then make its impact in other part also. The economy has inflation, deflation, everything it has. So every economical situations may get affected with this depression or prosperity stage of economy or of business entities because the economic situation is always depend on the economic activities which are operated by the business entities or business units. So they all other economic activities or parts are connected with these business activities. So it have impact on other part also. Then the cyclical movement are even international in character. So they have international character also. That means if mechanism of international trade makes the boom or depression in one country and it will be shared and carried to other countries also. So to the neighbor countries especially or the country which have the trading link with the our country like so it will affect the friend countries or neighboring countries. So that's about the sixth characteristic of business cycle. Then the next characteristic of business cycle is presence of crisis. So the crisis is a moment it has some problems or in which the business will face some problems of doing business activities. There will be up and down movements are not symmetrical, means they may not be same. Then the downward movement is more sudden. So when the decline starts, the company unable to meet its requirements suddenly and violent, then the upward movement. So when upward movement also it will get hard to back to use the opportunities. So but if once started at mass upward movement become faster but downward movement also is more sudden. So if they lost the connectivity with their activities like no proper supply, no proper production, no employment guarantee to their workers, and no interest and no profit. So if it continues for a longer time, so there will be a crisis for them. So in business cycle, there will be a crisis either for upward movement or downward movement. If it is in case of upward movement, they have to utilize the opportunities, extend their ability by sharpening their sources, using of resources, mobilizing the resources properly, and competing with the competitors with suitable strategies and plans. So if they are unable to catch them, again it will become crisis. Though they have good capable ideas with them, but it may not work if they don't catch the opportunities properly. So it's about the seventh characteristic of business cycle, that is presence of crisis. See, after discussing all these characteristics of business cycle, we come to know that business cycle is influenced with or by changes or fluctuations but it has characteristics of reinforcement and recovering. So then no stage in the business cycle or no phases of business cycle are eternal. They have a start and end, and they are repetitive. They may not be a similar kind of phase. It will be run for a long time. So with this, I would like to conclude this session. Thank you.